welcome back. So, we were discussing about the search and unemployment theory, and we looked at certain angles of one period model. We will be further expanding this particular idea and looking into the two sided model, but before that we were just started understanding the certain dimensions comparative statistics, that what happens to the macroeconomic variable like unemployment when we have the increase in the welfare or the unemployment benefit from the government. So, we will be starting from there and then we will move to the two period model. The reference remains same, the Williamson and Sanjay K. Chugh about the book that I have referred, and if we go back and look at, then we were talking about here. So, let us first go by the long run equilibrium. So, what we see that here the people who are moving from employment to unemployment, it represented by S into 1 minus u. The people who are coming from unemployment, unemployed, or those who are becoming from unemployed to employed, it represented by this. By chart, the equilibrium looks like this, and at x axis you will see that here we are measuring the wage rate, but here it is not the wage rate, it is the unemployment. So, here it is deciding about the unemployment in the economy here. Now, here we have the comparative statistics for the first variable, which is very important, that what happens when we have the increase in the unemployment insurance benefit. So, UI benefit that we say. So, here we have, when we see increase in the unemployment benefit, it moves up, and then here we have the VW. When we have this side, so we can see that this is the equilibrium that we had. Now, we are seeing that it has moved from UPHW1, which means that if you have the unemployment insurance benefit going up, we see more bargaining happening with the labor market. So, wage rate has also gone up, because now by this amount it has gone up W1 to W2 star, and this has resulted in increase in unemployment. So, now you can see earlier the employment was U1, but now it is U2. So, whenever we see increase in unemployment insurance benefit, so this is a good learning for those countries who provide enough employment insurance benefit, especially in Europe and Canada, where we see high rate of unemployment. One of the reasons could be this, that when you provide enough unemployment insurance benefit to the individuals, and when they know that this becomes the benchmark for bargain. So, they will always be looking for higher wage that may not be available immediately in the economy. So, the worker will remain on the unemployment benefit for a longer period as compared to the smaller period, that is the short term benefit that we always provide with unemployment insurance benefits. So, in some cases it may also happen that this particular consumer or the unemployed worker would not like to accept the offer, because he knows that he is getting higher unemployment benefit compared to what he is getting in the market. So, the immediate impact is that there will be a positive impact on the unemployment. Your unemployment in the economy will increase, and this will create further disequilibrium in the labor market. So, this is how. So, in India, you will find that because of the rural employment scheme, some of the economists argue that and they have also found that because of the employment guarantee scheme, it has become a very good barometer for the labor to seek or decide about the higher wage rate, which means that if the under employment guarantee scheme, if the labor is getting 200 rupees per day, he would not like to work below this wage rate, because he knows that under employment scheme I am going to get this amount for sure. So, until unless someone offers me beyond 200 rupees per day, then only I will be working. The similar analogy can be applied in most of the countries wherever you have the unemployment insurance benefit, but it also does not mean that we should not have such policies, because such policies are important. We found that we have seen that in case of US economy, how during the first wave of COVID-19, millions of people had applied for such benefits, those who had lost their jobs. So, the unemployment insurance benefit from the welfare side, it has a lot of positive effects, but from the labor market side, it also has some negative effects that this particular model highlights, and it is important to note. Now, here we have the job offer rate. So, what we see in the job offer rate here, when we have the job offer rate, so even if you have the unemployment insurance benefit going up, suppose at this rate, what we have is that the unemployment is having here, right. If you have a job offer rate, it means that if the firms are posting jobs, the unemployed worker will have opportunity to apply for those jobs and get the opportunity, and at the same time, if you have a lot of vacancies coming, there is high chance that the firms will be ready to pay even higher than the unemployment benefit, because they have to employ, they have to get produce the output, they have to supply, they have to meet certain requirements. So, they will be willing to pay higher than the increase in unemployment benefit. What is the impact of that? The impact of that is that it reduces your unemployment. So, now you are moving from U1 to U2. So, it is leftward. So, here you can see here the line is moving up. So, the underlying learning is that if you have if you are offering a higher insurance unemployment insurance benefit, then the country should also look for creation of more jobs. If you have a more posting of jobs in the market, then this creates positive impact on the unemployment, and unemployment gets reduced, which means that unemployment, if I am saying about the positive impact, so it is not that this will increase, but I am saying that the wage rate will increase. Once you have the wage rate increasing, then this will create this will help reduce the unemployment. So, this is what we are mentioning. So, I hope these two comparative statistics help you understand the functioning of the labor market, how with the unemployment insurance benefit and job offer rate. So, more generous unemployment benefit implies that unemployed workers can afford to be more picky about the jobs, which means that even if you have a lot of vacancies in the market, it may also happen that the unemployed worker will be simply waiting for a very high jump in the wage rate, then only he will be accepting. So, some kind of here I would say, because of this unemployment benefit, some kind of moral hazard may also come into picture, that this particular individual is not bothering about that how much the burden that economy is experiencing because of him not accepting the offer, and how the taxpayers are burdened. Rather, he is looking for his own welfare, not about the economy as such. So, in a softer sense, it can be applied. The generous unemployment benefits are one of the responsible factors for the higher unemployment in the Europe and Canada and then USA, because these are the countries where we often experience, and these are very welfare oriented economies, and we often find that these two countries have a higher unemployment rate. So, I hope this particular summary has helped you understand the labor market dynamics in a much more I would say stronger way than what we normally see in the case of the conventional labor market understanding and unemployment understanding. And here we are basically trying to look at how we can understand the behavior of unemployment with certain macro variables which we do not discuss or analyze in a on a regular basis. So, those not discussed regularly variables are important to understand in this context. Now, here we have the two-sided search model of unemployment. So, here now we are going to introduce the form. Once I am going to introduce the form, then it becomes really important to note that here we are having just the one period. So, we are not saying that what happens if this representative consumer is not going to, or this unemployed person is not going to get job even after a continuous period. So, we are not looking at those dynamic angles, because that will further complicate the matter. But yes, if you want to look at it in. So, this particular session may becomes a reference, and then may become a reference, and then you can think about reading some more about this particular model. So, here you have the n consumers who can all potentially work. So, n is the working age population. Number of firms that we are introducing now. So far what we have discussed about the labor market. So, here we are considering the n as the labor who is looking for work. So, n is the working population, right. Number of firms that we are introducing, those who are coming from demand side. So, number of workers coming from supply side, number of firms are coming from demand side. So, those firms, how these two economic entities interact and what is the equilibrium, that we will be talking about. So, each of the n consumers that we have, the working age population that I mentioned here, chooses whether to work outside the market, home work, or to search for work in the market. Here you have the Q, the number of consumers who search for work. So, let us talk about this Q. So, n minus q, once I am mentioning n minus q, it means that these people are not interested in looking for job. Maybe they are self sufficient, or they are interested in only living a miserable life or more than decent life. So, let us not discuss about that. Here we are talking about only those who are interested in getting the job. So, PQ is the expected payoff to searching for work that would induce Q workers to search, which means that if the Q worker is going to search for the job, so associated payoff is PQ, and PQ also is the supply curve. So, it will also have the upward slope. So, this is how. So, if he is going to work, he is going to get more benefit, economic benefit, which means that it is going to so labor force is going to bound to increase if you have the payoff higher. So, of course, anyone would like to go for a more kind of work, because economic activities provide incentives. So, it talks about this. So, basically it shows about the supply side of the labor who is searching for jobs. So, here we are looking at. Now, since we have already introduced this part in the one sided model and we have discussed in detail. So, those variables or those dimensions are also important. So, that is why we are cutting short the description on the labor. So, here we have the firm. So, here if I am mentioning about labor, so here is the consumer that we are discussing about. So, here we have the firm. A firm must post a vacancy in order to have a chance for matching for a worker. Now, here since we are introducing for the first time the firm, so let us understand the behavior of the firm, how this firm is going to play important. So, here we have the firm which post a vacancy. Now, in the modern era, with the help of technology, internet and softwares, and then you have lot of web portals and companies, agencies involved in hiring folks for the companies. You can think about, if the company is going to post a vacancy, then it also incurs cost, and that cost is represented by K. So, whenever a firm posts a vacancy in order to have a chance for matching with a worker, then this is represented in the unit of consumption goods. So, K is the cost of posting a vacancy, right. So, here the company may be hiring a consulting firm, job search firm, and this firm may be helping the firm to get the labor. So, and the consultancy firm may be charging from firm for posting the jobs and sorting out the applications, providing shortlisted candidates, the list of shortlisted candidates, and the final recruitment is facilitated by this particular firm. So, he must be charging some cost. So, and when I am saying about the number of firms looking, so here we are also including or studying only those firms who are interested in posting jobs. The firms which are not interested, we are not going to consider that. So, A is the number of active firms who are posting regularly vacancies. So, if the company is posting vacancies, so then we are counted here. So, I hope it is clear that here we are introducing a firm, right, who is looking for skilled workforce. Whenever the firm posts the job, then this particular firm incurs the cost K, which is being paid to the consultancy firm, and A is the number of firms that we are looking at. Now, here we have the matching. So, what is the matching? It looks like here we are saying that the when I am using the term matching, matching in the sense that the unemployed person who is looking for job, the skilled worker, when the firm is looking for the skilled worker, how these two are interacting with each other. So, that is what we are matching. So, the individual is looking for job and firm is looking for labor, how they interact when the matching takes place. So, here we have a successful matching in the model is between one worker and one firm. M is the aggregate number of matches. So, it may happen that if the firm has received the application of 100, but only 10 are suitable, right, which are meeting the criteria of the firm to be hired. So, in that case it becomes really important to note that how are we going to decide about. So, if we are talking about matching efficiency, so E is the matching efficiency and M is the aggregate. So, here M, if you think about, so here we have the EMQA. Q is the number of individual who are looking for job, A is the number of firm which are posting the job. So, this is what, so matching function is decided by this, right. So, the matching function has properties like the input Q and A produces the output M, and E plays the same role as total factor productivity. So, it measures about the efficiency of the matching. So, E basically measures the efficiency. If E is higher, then you have higher matching, otherwise it is not, and it is linearly decided. So, you are assuming that it is the constant return to a scale characteristics. So, we have the positive marginal product and diminishing marginal product we are deciding about. Now, if the consumer is choosing to work, which means that if he is deciding to search for work, then he or she finds a match with a firm with a probability of this, which is nothing but EM QA Q comma A upon Q, which in turn can be written as the probability of getting employed, which means that if there is a chance that this representative consumer will get, which means it is attached with the probability, then it becomes EM Q upon Q gets cancelled. So, it is 1 A upon Q, which is nothing but here it can be written as EMJ, and this J is nothing but it shows about the labor market tightness, that how frequently matching is taking place, because here you have the A and here you have the Q. If A is increasing, Q remains same. For the worker, it is always a good opportunity that you have more number of firm posting vacancies and you have a limited number of people looking for job. If A is lower, right, Q is higher, which means that now the posting is less, the individuals are more to look for. So, the bargaining on the wage rate will be much lower, but if A is higher, Q is lower, bargaining is bound to be higher, which means that wage rate will shoot up. So, if the consumer searches for work, it is matched by he. If it is matched, then he or she receives wage W. If the consumer searches and is not matched, then he or she is unemployed and receives UI benefit, and it is coming the same UI benefit, unemployment insurance benefit that we have mentioned. It is coming from one sided model. So, this UI benefit B, it is coming from the one sided model which we have finished. So, what is the interference that we are seeing? That as long as we are seeing that this is very smooth, but whenever we introduce the unemployment benefit, then it becomes some kind of hindrance for the firm to hire the labor, because labor will now set the benchmark that until unless you give higher than this, then only I will be deciding about. So, here the supply side of the labor market, the optimization by consumers, the title mentions, it mentions about this, that the amount of A and amount of K will decide about how much this particular the labor market tightness will depend upon AQ. So, here we have the marginal consumer. So, here we can think about the probability of being unemployed if a consumer chooses to search for market is then 1 minus P C. So, this is what we say. If he is getting matched, then it is E M 1 j. If he is not getting matched, then it is 1 minus E M 1 j, which means that for consumers who is indifferent between home production and searching for work. So, from where home production is coming, that the consumer is having the option that he can either go to work or he can simply sit at home. But the equilibrium condition that we are mentioning here, it is this: for the consumer who is indifferent between home production and searching for work is this: P q is equal to P c w. So, this is what he is getting. When he is not employed, 1 minus P c, it is multiplied by B. So, here we have B plus E m 1 j w minus B, if you just think about it. So, here it is. So, here we can write it as we have mentioned about E m 1 j. So, here we have P c w plus 1 minus P c B. P c that we are mentioning about, it can be derived from here E m 1 j. So, E m 1 j multiplied by W, and this if you just go for simplification, this is how it looks like: B plus E m 1 j W minus B. And if you think about the labor market tightness, so the labor market tightness, as I mentioned about A and Q. So, here it is labor market tightness, which means that the overall aggregation, that how much payoff of the individual is, he is having two scenario. If he gets employment, he gets the W wage rate. If he does not get the employment, then here it is a 1 minus P c B, which is equivalent to B plus E m 1 j W minus B. So, W minus B will play a very important role. As long as the gap is larger, W is greater than B, it is good for the consumer. If W is less than B, then the consumer is forced to accept the wage rate, and so that is not acceptable, because B is the threshold at which the labor is asking for a higher. So, he can only think about working when it is higher. So, this is how we are working. So, you can think about this is the labor supply that we have, and this is how we are arriving at the labor force, and this is the expected payoff which we get is this B plus E m 1 j multiplied by W minus B. So, this is the equation that it mentions about. Now, demand side of the labor market. So, this one is coming from the supply side. So, this we have looked from the labor side. Let us look from the firm side, how firm is now behaving in this. Now, firm is entering in the market by posting the job vacancies. So, this is how we have a firm entering in the labor market, bears the cost K to put a vacancy. The probability that a firm with a vacancy finds a worker to fill the job is this. So, P f is equal to E m q A upon A. So, and here we have, if we just go for solution, so here it becomes Q upon A is equal to 1, which is nothing but E m 1 upon j is equal to 1. So, this becomes the reciprocal of this. So, 1 upon j 1. So, when the worker is matched, a worker and a firm produces output Z, right. So, this is what when matching happens, and the payoff to the profit is nothing but how much the worker has produced and how much it has got as a wage. So, this is the difference that we see. So, from demand side we see just opposite of the supply side, that we are now dividing the matching function by A, and this is what we are seeing. So, it is labor market tightness that I just mentioned here, it is just the opposite. So, J decide about the labor market tightness that we have mentioned, and in order to arrive at the expected net payoff. So, this is how it looks like, that for the firm will enter in the labor market only when P f, which means that the probability of hiring, which means that when the firm is willing to or finds a worker, then this worker how much he has produced and how much the firm has paid minus the cost of posting the vacancy. So, P f Z minus W minus K is equal to 0 is decides about. Now, in equilibrium what we are finding that K must be equal, because K is the cost that this firm is incurring. So, K must be equal to the expected payoff for the firm for posting vacancies. So, here we have EM 1 upon J1 is equal to K upon Z minus W. As long as K is higher for the firm, it is costlier. So, this from here we will start in the next session, and we will be discussing further. So, I hope it has made it clear to all of you, those who are introduced to this topic for the first time, that when we are discussing about the one sided model, it is more or less clear. When we are introducing the firm, then firm is also having certain scenarios to look at, and it is also looking for the objective of maximizing profit. So, we are also trying to see the cost K is playing very important role. So, this we will understand in the next session. Thank you so much.